This is your report. First, general things here. Your swing time is less than 900 milliseconds, which is fairly fast. I like it. I like a faster backswing instead of having a slow backswing. Faster backswing eliminates a lot of things. And then your caliber speed, the average is about 105 in this calculation. And this is an elite man's average, including professional players, college players, and then some teaching professionals. It's a 110. So yours is a bit less than that. But for your height, you're generating similar speed. Yeah. So typically, the ones in our database, they are a lot taller than you. So, and also, this is the caliber speed during the backswing. From here to here, this is backswing, but the peak occurs here. This is slightly on the right side of the. If you draw a midline here, it happens on the right side, which is good. So that means you're generating a peak speed during the backswing more toward the end of the backswing. Now, the top view here, this shows the direction of the caliber motion. So this large rectangle here shows the swing plane. And then this is a target line. And then your swing plane is fairly well aligned with the target line. This is your hand motion plane. Your hand motion plane goes a bit outward here. So it's on the average about 7 degrees. So while your hands are moving out, the club head is more going toward. So there is an angle gap. And I call it the outward angle gap because your hand motion plane is more outward than your club head. So when this happens, later you will see that toward the end of the follow through, you are moving the hand quite high up. The drop here and then try to lift it quite high up here. So be aware of this. Your hand motion plane is, so you come down here and then lift this. So this will be quite obvious when we go to the functional swing plane view here. So this straight line is a swing plane. Then, so the swing plane is calculated from the club head motion. So as you can see, during the backswing, your club head is moving above. So it stays above the swing plane here. And with this, so this is top of backswing. So you have a little bit of shelling motion here. So at the top, you actually have a layoff alignment. And then, so now the whole club is pretty much on the swing plane here. The planar motion. But then you see in the follow through, your hands start moving up. You have a flipping motion here. And then also the club head goes quite high above the swing plane. And this generally gives, when this happens, the large deviation happens, either you have too much rotation of your shoulder in the follow through, or you have a lot of flipping motion here. And then with this layoff, your swing plane tends to be flat. So the slope of the swing plane is about 45 degrees. But it fluctuates here. So 44.5 to 48.9 here. So you have fluctuation, and then the standard deviation is a bit relatively large here, 1.8 degrees. That means from swing to swing, your swing plane changes. I think it's because of the layoff. Okay? So if you can keep the club more parallel to the swing plane, about here, that'll be easier to maintain the consistency. But because you are intentionally dropping, depending on how much you drop from trial to trial, the slope of the swing plane will change. So this is 1.8 degrees standard deviation is relatively large, compared to a typical professional players. And also the direction also shows a fluctuation. So the standard deviation 1.6 degrees. So this one 2.3 degrees inward, and this one is 1.9 degrees outward. So you have, actually this is this is inward, this is outward. So you have fluctuations. So if you go to top view here, if we use the first one, it looks like this. So the swing plane is inward, but your hand motion plane is outward. So it is important to maintain good consistency in terms of slope and the direction. But these standard deviation values are relatively large compared to typical professional players. And then the center of mass motion here, the red line shows the whole body center of mass motion. So typically it moves away, going up, and then diagonally down, and then diagonally up. So generally, this red line follows typical pattern. So moving away, and then going up here, and then going down and up here. But here, this downward motion can go more here. So this low point should be a lot lower than this one here. Yeah. Then you will have good vertical interaction. So extra speed comes from the lead leg action.
Lead leg action.
Mm-hmm. But for that, you should have a vertical motion. So the thing is, in order to interact with the ground well, then you should have sufficient lateral motion and then vertical motion. So a lot of people say you should not move laterally.
Right.
But that's not true, mechanically speaking. If you don't move, then you don't generate acceleration. If you don't have acceleration, that means you don't have force acting in that direction.
Right.
So in order to use the ground well in both directions, laterally and then vertically, then you have to have motion in the lateral direction and in the vertical direction. So and then for the backward motion, we don't have much. So center of mass generally stays there. And because it's limited by the length of the foot, so if you have too much forward backward motion, then you lose balance. But for the lateral motion, because we have a wide stance, you have more room here. So you have to take advantage of the room. So, and then you can drop this a bit more. So when that happens, you'll be able to push the ground hard with the lead leg. But that gives extra booster. Okay. And then the pelvis motion is sort of reasonable here. And then pelvis motion here. So the lower one shows a rotational motion of the pelvis. The upper one shows a translational motion of the pelvis. And first the rotation here. The red line is rotation. So you are rotating to the right, to about man's average, elite man's average. And then at impact also is quite close to elite man's average. And then these are well balanced here. So you are turning pelvis this way and then later this way to impact reasonably well. These are balanced. So it's important to have a more balanced rotation, both directions. The blue line shows the lateral tilt. So during the backswing, your left side becomes lower here, right? So this lateral tilt keeps increasing to this point, and then it starts decreasing. And eventually, the leader side becomes higher, so then this goes to positive. So this is reasonable here. So you have good lateral tilt. Although you can increase this angle a bit more, so it's more than 20, slightly more than 20 degrees. But so that gives good vertical interaction. When you have a good vertical interaction, particularly when you let the body drop, then the left knee will be bent more here. Okay? So when you drop, you're not just dropping the whole body like this, but yeah, the left side is dropping here. Then you have a more
Right.
angle here. Then with this, it's easier to kick. Yeah. So when this angle increases, that means the left knee is more flexed. So it's easier to push.
It's more flexed at the top of the swing, at the top of the back.
So that happens around the top of action. This is top of action here.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And then this is called the endopelvis rotation.
Right.
So pelvis rotation completes at this point and then starts rotating in the opposite direction. And then one thing here. Here, 3 and 4 are happening almost at the same time here. So 1, 2. 2 is when the club is horizontal. 3 is when the lead arm is parallel to the ground in the backswing in the frontal view. 4 is when the club becomes vertical. And then these happen almost at the same time. But these should be separated a bit more. So they let it go around instead of quickly introducing wrist cock. So you have a tendency of early wrist cock.
Right.
So in the frontal view, let's go with this one here. In the frontal view, when the lead arm is parallel to the ground, the club is also kind of vertical here. Actually, club becomes vertical slightly before the arm becomes horizontal. So these are kind of reversed here. It's because you're introducing early, quick wrist motion. And also the green line shows a forward backward tilt of the pelvis. So from the starting position, it's already inclined forward, but from here, during the backswing, it increases. That means it's posteriorly tilting, so backward tilt, and then it peaks at here. So when the rotation is completed, then you also see the most backward, tilt. Then it goes forward and then backward. This is perfect pattern here. But generally, your pelvis rotation looks really good. And then for the translational motion, the red line shows a forward-backward motion of the pelvis. You have the tendency of moving pelvis backward initially, slightly, and then going forward here. But when you have really active leg actions, then it'll just go forward.
Okay.
So at the beginning of the backswing, you tend to move your pelvis slightly backward, and then forward, backward, forward here. So overall, the pattern is reasonable except this one here. So instead of going backward, just go forward, backward, and forward here. And then the green line is away toward motion. So from here to here, you have a main away motion.
Okay.
So initially, the pelvis center of mass is moving away, but then it goes toward and away again. It's because your pelvis, your body is showing a sort of a spinning motion here. So from here, if just your body just spins here. So initially you have slight shift and then spin, then you have this kind of pattern here. But if you turn your pelvis about the spine axis here, or this way, then it will show a simple pattern here. So it goes away, and then starts moving toward. So move away, shift away, and then recentering, and then keep moving forward toward the target. But here you have 2 peaks here. That means this one is coming from initial slight shift motion of the body, but then because of the spinning, you have another peak here. So this means you will later, when we look at the kinematic sequence pattern, then in the backswing, you will reach peak angular velocities a bit early, okay, and then slow down. Okay, so we'll see that. And the blue line is the up and down motion of the pelvis. Now this one is a bit different here. So generally, it has to go down continuously here, and then go up here. But you drop it a little bit, and then it stays here, and then it goes above the initial position, but you need to go down and then go up. So by pushing the ground good, this has to go up higher here. But you do have a hesitation here. So here you're losing something. So in order to use the ground in the vertical direction well, then drop the body and then kick. So the pelvis represents pretty much the central body motion. So the whole body center of mass motion shows both the central body and the arms and club together. And then the arms and club are moving, so mass component is moving. So it determines the whole body center of mass pattern. But when you look at the pelvis motion, it's pretty much the central body, how it's moving, right? And then, so you have a hesitation here instead of continuously going down and then push up here. So this is when this is a transition. This is top of backswing. Is a under pelvis rotation, top of backswing, and then this is when on the way down, when the lead arm becomes parallel to the ground. Here you have a hesitation. Rather, you should allow the body to drop. So more, Or what this suggests is that later we'll talk about something called unweighting, but the timing of unweighting is delayed. So we need to look at the translational pattern of the pelvis. And then this is the X factor. This shows the separation between the hips and shoulders here. So about here, both the lines are parallel to each other, the blue line and the yellow line here. And then the separation keeps increasing. And this is top of backswing, and then this is the maximum here. So you have pretty much a continuous increase in the X factor, which is reasonable. Now the kinematic sequence here. Kinematic sequence. So kinematic sequence basically shows angular rotational velocity of different body parts. So the red line here is the pelvis. And then green is the thorax, and the blue is the shoulder. And then gray is the arms. And then the pink line is the club. So, and then there are three sequences: the backswing sequence, the transition sequence, and then the downswing sequence. So let's first look at the backswing sequence. So first we'll eliminate the wrist angular velocity here. So I'm running several programs at the same time, so it's kind of slow here. So then, this side is backswing from here to top of backswing here. And then we have a downswing here. And then here's a transition phase, which is between end of pelvis rotation to top of backswing here. That's highlighted here. Let's first look at the backswing sequence. The pelvis reaches peak angular velocity here.
That's quite early on.
And then interestingly, you have another peak here.
Right.
So this occurs early because you have a quick early turn, which is coming from the spinning. And also the green line is thorax here and then shoulders here. They also reach peak angular velocity relatively early here. So we need to move this more toward the center of the backswing phase here. So no need to have an early quick turn, but it should be a gradual turn toward the top. Rather, imagine you are angry. You're angry and you try to hit something, then you don't hit like this, right? So you're building the tension toward the end. For that, you have to speed up the body a bit later. So these peaks should occur later. If these peaks occur early, the problem is from here to the transition point here, they will slow down. And then it's a gradual, slow down here. Then here you can have different things. So if you are going to use a short time to finish the swing, also you have to sort of distribute the body motion so that the body has a continuous motion and then transition instead of early quick motion and then this motion here. Yeah. So I see the tendency of these peaks happening early. But the sequence is okay. The sequence is okay, but the timing is a bit early. And then here's the arms, and then the club here. So club peak angular velocity is happening, in the second half here, which is good. But the body motion is reaching peak a bit earlier. And then the transition sequence here, now, because you have relatively more time here, so it has to be a gradual slowdown. But interestingly, when we have this kind of situation, instead of just continuously slowing down, rather you slow down and almost stop slowing, so maintain the speed. So it doesn't go continuously. So as you can see here, the pelvis angular velocity decreases and then it stays here, and then and also decreases. So you have two-stage motion, and then the shoulder line shows a complex pattern here. So it is important to move these more toward the center here, and then instead of early motion at the beginning, initially it's okay to start a bit slower, but then build the tension toward the end of the backswing. And then largely, what we see here is a clustered transition of all the parts above thorax. Thorax, shoulders, arms, and club all transition pretty much at the same time here. And then the pelvis only, between pelvis and the rest, we have good separation here. And so you have to use the momentum toward the end of the backswing using the faster motion. But instead of have early motion and then slow down, build and almost like a ballistic motion here, let it go. Then the body has to slow this down actively. With that, you have good separation of the pelvis transition to a club transition, and these are all separated. But in this one, we see cluster transition here. And in the downswing, the peaks are a bit delayed here. So this is the peak for the pelvis, but this peak should occur about here, about 8 here. At 8, the club becomes vertical. Around here, you have a maximum angular velocity, but is slightly delayed. And then the thorax as well, the shoulders, and then basically the trunk shows slightly delayed onset of peak. This means you're putting a lot of effort through the impact and then follow through, because you want to have a more effort, put more effort at the impact and then after. Or because your intention is to put a lot of effort at impact. Right. But when you put a lot of effort at impact, then it affects the follow-through motion. But if you want to reach peak speed here, actually here you have to put maximum effort. A lot of effort here to accelerate this. And by the time you reach the impact point, the club head does not have to accelerate. You just need to have maximum speed there. Maximum acceleration here, that means maximum effort here, but maximum speed here. But if you try to put a lot of effort through the impact, then generally the peak angular velocity of the body will be delayed. Then you will not be able to transfer momentum from the body to the club that much. So these are slightly delayed. So, what happens is, we have a transition sequence showing cluster transition, and then we see delay in these peaks here in the downswing. And then, so these generally show the shape of the motion. Now let's go to the ground reaction force and the torque you generate. So here you will see 3 arrows here. So these are the forces coming from the ground that we measure using the force plates. So these are called the ground reaction force. And this is the combined force. And so initially, as a middle graph shows the forces. Red is the total force. And then green and blue. The blue is the force acting on the trail side. Green is the force acting on the lead side here. Then during the backswing here, you will have here, about here, the total force becomes the maximum here. So this is one body weight. So it's shown relative to the body weight. So you start with the body weight. If you're just standing on the ground, then the ground reaction force should be equal to your body weight. And then when you have a more active push, then the force becomes greater than the body weight. So this shows the active push. This can go a bit higher. This can go higher. But the one thing we need to pay attention to is that if you look at these two here, these two forces do not show much difference here. Around here, once you reach this peak value and then you go about here, you must have this force a lot more here. This should be a lot less here. So you should have a more force difference between the two. So this should be a lot greater, than this should decrease more. So you have to have good loading on the trail side here. Okay, this should increase. And then, so somewhere here, the so-called unweighting starts. So when we interact with the ground vertically, then always the force goes above the body weight and below the body weight. And then the area, the combined area above the body weight should be the same to combine the area below the body weight. Otherwise, if we have difference, then either you jump off or you collapse. But if you're standing on the ground, that means the ups and downs, these should be equal to each other. Okay? But then, if you want to increase the interaction with the ground, then upside should increase, downside should increase. Still, these are the same, right? If you don't push that well here, then you have this minimal unweighting here. So essentially, up to this point, you don't have much unweighting here. Up to this point. And then, unweighting starts here. So you have maximum unweighting. The timing is not bad. The timing is not bad. This is right at the top of action. But the way you do unweighting is almost no unweighting, and then from end of pelvis rotation, top of action, suddenly you introduce unweighting, but this should be actually continuous here. So in other words, in the backswing, instead of quickly moving, initially having a kind of jerky motion at the beginning, rather, you have to have a continuous backswing motion all the way. And then you will be able to better connect the backswing to downswing. So you have a continuous unweighting here all the way. Then the area under the body weight line increases. If you have a continuous unweighting up to this point, that means you should have also larger positive side, right? This goes up here. So it's important to, when you want to have a reasonably large vertical ground reaction force here, you should have good unweighting. Okay? That unweighting is from a continuous unweighting here. So this the total unweighting comes from end of upward motion and the beginning of downward motion. So when the upward motion, downward motion are well connected, then you have a continuous unweighting. But here, up to this point, almost no unweighting. And then once your pelvis completes the rotation, Then you try to unweight intentionally here. So this should be more continuous here. Then this goes up here. So your vertical force is relatively small compared to elite man's average here. The timing is also slightly delayed here. So generally in the downswing, you show the tendency of slightly delayed things, like a peak angular velocity of the body, a peak ground reaction force here. Now, the bottom one here, this shows the separation between this line and then the red dot. Red dot is whole body center of mass. So when you move the body rotates about the center of mass. So center of mass is considered as the rotation center of the body. And then the force arrow goes this way, and then center of mass is here, and then the separation here, that's called the moment arm. Imagine you are using a wrench, try to rotate something, then the distance from the center of rotation to your hand, that's the moment arm. And then the reason why the moment arm is important is that if you multiply the momentum and the force, then it gives the torque. So this is the torque you're generating in the frontal plane by using the ground. Okay? Now, you're generating good momentum at top of action here. This is way above elite man's average. It's because your force is inclined quite a bit here. Part of the reason is here you have a good unweighting at this point, and also you have a good horizontal component of force. So you are interacting with the ground in horizontal direction is good. Okay? So you have long momentum, and then at the beginning of the downswing you already have torque, which is same to elite man's average maximum. So this is good. So the reason why you are relatively short compared to typical professional players, but your speed is reasonably good here. But you can obviously, you have to increase the speed in order to compete. Right? But you have good momentum here, so the torque is large here. And then the maximum momentum occurs here with good unweighting. So this is when you have maximum unweighting here. And then with this, you have a long momentum here. So the torque increases further here. But the problem is, after this peak, it quickly decreases here. So you're losing the momentum quickly, and then the torque quickly here. So at this stage here, when the lead arm becomes parallel to ground here, at this point, you should have the force going vertically here, so that you have a bit longer momentum here. And also, the peak force should be greater here. That the peak force should be greater. But currently, at this point, it's inclining backward too much, so you're quickly losing the momentum here. So the torque decreases rapidly here. So this torque is really good. This is normal to the body weight, so here at the beginning of the downswing, you're generating a good amount of torque here, but it's quickly decreasing. So as you can see here, your finished posture here, you're generally just inclined backward here, but you're not really kicking the ground and standing on the lead leg, but you just try to swing through. And you're putting a lot of effort in turning your body, so that's why the peak angular velocity is delayed. As a result, your hands go quite high here, because you're putting a lot of effort near the impact and then in the follow-through. So you try to swing through instead of kicking the ground and then letting it go. So that's what I see here. Up to this point, in terms of momentum and the torque, is really good here. But then, by using good up and down motion, and then from here, and then throw, and then stand on this side instead of go here and then just swing through. So because you don't stand on the leader side, then you're essentially pushing down and toward the target. The force inclines this way. Now this passes close to the center of mass. So you quickly lose the torque here. So this is, and then it's evident that in the downswing, you try to swing through here, so that your little leg is not pushing the ground that much here. That's why your peak force is smaller than this. So in terms of rotational motion, up to this point, even up to this point is reasonably good here. So you have a larger area here. But after that, it quickly decreases. And then you're not standing on the leader side that well here. So this force, surprisingly here, you have a lot of torque early on, but the force is not that large here. The moment time is almost zero at this point here. Then the hands go this high here. So while having faster overall, faster motion, but you need to develop good rhythm. When you have good rhythm, then you will be able to redistribute all these things here and use the entire time here. So if you are using this much time for a swing, that within this time period, you must have a good flow of motion here, right? For that, you need to develop rhythm. And they'll particularly use the momentum strategy in the backswing so that you have good separation here, and it should be well spaced here. So now, I will show you another pattern to inspire you a little bit. Okay, so I'll show you a pattern similar to yours, but at the same time different from yours. This is Grant Wade, former PGA Tour player. So in his case, he's generating more speed than the average. So 114, close to 115. Top view, both are fairly well aligned. If you look at the standard deviation of the slope of the swing plane is 0.7. Generally, this is the hand motion plane slope here. This is a bit higher, but in terms of the slope of the functional swing plane, the direction of the swing plane here, it's 0.7. It's a lot smaller than yours. And then the swing plane here. And then you see at top of backswing, actually he's keeping the hands and club a lot more away from your case. And he's not intentionally laying off. It's a fairly parallel to the swing plane here. But from here to here, he has a good shallowing motion because beginning with the downswing, he's using the body here. So it's naturally coming down toward the swing plane. So again, about here, the club is already on the swing plane. Good planar motion. And then the club is moving above, but not much here. And also the hands are about here. When the club is vertical, in the follow through, the hands are still about here, rather than going high up here. Pelvis motion, this pattern is similar here. And then he shows a good lateral tilt here. So this part is very similar to yours, although a slight difference in magnitude now here. So he's moving away and then recentering, and then keep moving toward the target. Pelvis is moving forward, backward, forward, and then continuous downward motion, and then push up here. So here we see some differences. And then X factor. Here's continuous increase in the X factor. Similar. Now is the kinematic sequence here. The peak occurs here now. The pelvis peak is more toward the center. So these are happening a bit later. And then the peak club angular velocity also occurs on the right side of the backswing. and then transition here. Look at this. Well spaced transition because he's using more the momentum strategy. So yet let the upper body keep turning while your pelvis is slowing down. With that, automatically you have good separation, and then going in the opposite direction. So you need at the top here, instead of go up and then try to turn at the same time here, you need to have a good. It's almost like a bouncing action or a ballistic action. So, and then throw. Using the momentum, let the upper part keep rotating while you are slowing down the whole thing using the pelvis and above gradually. And then throw instead of pick here and then start everything together. So this is big difference here. And then he reaches peak angular velocity actually earlier here because he can generate early acceleration, reach peak value early. And then the body slows down. This line is wrist angular velocity. I forgot to mention your wrist angular velocity pattern. But so at the top, still, this is negative. Negative means the cocking. And then even at the beginning of the downswing, still cocking. Cocking velocity actually increases. And then it turns to positive here, about here. This is at the instant when the uncocking starts. It's quite delayed uncocking. And then the wrist angular velocity increases rapidly. It goes above man's average. That's why the club rotates faster. Yeah. So it's important to increase the wrist angular velocity in the end by slowing down the body. Right. If your body keeps rotating, but then you cannot give enough momentum to the club, so it's not necessarily translated to a club angular velocity. So we can see that here. And then the interaction with the ground here. So he's using slightly more time than you, but he has good push in the backswing here. And then you have he has a lot more difference. Actually, the maximum difference occurs here. Then this difference can, it decreases slightly. But here he has good push using the trail side here. So the total force also goes up. And then after that, continuous unweighting here all the way to here. The timing of peak unweighting is similar to yours, but the difference is he has a continuous unweighting here. And then with this, he is pushing good here. So he has a long momentum. He also generates a torque similar to elite man's average already at the beginning here. And then after that, what happens is at this position where you have maximum ground reaction force, still he maintains torque about here instead of quickly dropping. So his momentum is also here. So he has still some torque generated here. And then more important, he has a good push here. And then it's mainly coming from the lead leg here. Good lead leg push and the total push here. So he also generates a good momentum here. So he has a good inclination of force. It's because he also uses the ground well in the horizontal direction. So you share a lot of similarities with him, also some differences. So particularly here is you're weak. In his case, you can see that his body is shifted here. So he's loading to the lead side, and then here, kick and throw instead of just try to swing through. And then, so when he reaches late follow through here, his hands are here instead of going high up here. So when the hands go high up, that means you're putting a lot of effort through the impact. But instead, accelerate early and then let it go. So this is what we see in his pattern. I like his pattern because he has a lot of positive aspects. Now let's go back to your. Now the pink line is your wrist motion here. You are starting the uncocking early here at the end of pelvis rotation. So you have this uncocking and then recocking here. Uncocking and recocking.
Uncocking would probably be the layoff that I do.
No, yeah, it's because of the layoff.
Right, yeah.
So when you have layoff has actually the effect of uncocking.
Right.
In the frontal view, when you have a layoff, it looks like you have a good leg.
Right.
But if you look at it in the swing plane view,
Right. Right.
it actually gives an uncocking effect.
Right.
So you have a bit too much
Right.
layoff there. So then you have early uncocking and the recocking here. Then later, so you have the final uncocking starts here. But from here to here, as I said, your interest was just to swing through hard using upper body here. So you don't have much momentum transfer from the body to the club. So the wrist angular velocity does not increase enough. It's way below man's average here. And then the club angular velocity also stays below. But if you increase this up to this point, then this goes above. For that, you have to keep momentum to the club from the body. So you have to have good wrist action later and then throw. Yeah. For that, if you have a lot of shallowing here, laying off here, then when you come down, you cannot really accelerate that well here because it's down here. Yeah. So you need to start the acceleration early. That's the main thing here. So then you will be able to, by decreasing the layoff, you will get rid of this. And this is actually good here, having this cocking again. But eliminate this uncocking and then cocking, delayed release. But you should be in good position so that you can really throw it. Then the body will slow down. This delayed timing means from here to impact, you don't have enough time to lose the body momentum, right? So you cannot keep enough momentum to the club. But if you reach peak angular velocity, similar angular velocity earlier, then you have a longer time for the deceleration of the body and the acceleration of the club. So this is the area you need to work on. So instead of try to swing through all the way, activate this early and then let it go. And then overall, in order to have good flow, then you have to have a good rhythm here. And earlier when I was taking pictures, did you see the Instagram post?
No, I haven't seen it.
I posted some of the pictures I took. But I was taking the picture. It was hard to find the right timing because I couldn't see a clear rhythm in your motion. Eventually, I found the right timing, but so you need to develop good stepping-like rhythm. Okay, then it will automatically, improve the flow, and then on the way down, instead of swing through all the way, you have to activate everything early and then release, let it go.